You're swimming in crystal clear tropical waters, the sun warming your back as you float peacefully above a coral reef. Suddenly, the water around you grows cold, dark. A shadow passes beneath you, so massive it blocks out the light filtering through the waves. You look down and see rows of teeth, each one the size of your hand, inside a mouth that could swallow a car. This isn't a nightmare. This is what our oceans would look like if the Megalodon never went extinct. Yeah, welcome to a world where the ocean's most terrifying predator still rules the deep. The Megalodon lived between 23 and 3.6 million years ago, dominating the prehistoric seas during the Miocene and Pliocene epochs. This massive shark grew up to 18 meters long, that's 60 feet, and weighed an estimated 50 to 100 tons. To put that in perspective, a modern great white shark maxes out at about 6 meters, or 20 feet. The Megalodon was 3 times larger. Its bite force, scientists estimate it could generate up to 18 tons of pressure, powerful enough to crush a small car. But here's the thing, the Megalodon disappeared millions of years ago as ocean temperatures dropped and its primary food sources, large whales, began migrating to colder waters it couldn't survive in. But what if those environmental changes never happened? What if this apex predator adapted and survived into the modern era? If you could step into this alternate timeline, today's oceans would be a very different place. The water would still look blue and inviting from the shore, but beneath the surface, a silent terror would be lurking. Modern marine biologists estimate that a single adult megalodon would need to consume approximately 1,100 kilograms or 2,500 pounds of food every single day just to maintain its massive body. That's equivalent to eating 10 adult humans or 1 small whale daily. And here's the scary part, there wouldn't just be one megalodon. For a sustainable population, you'd need thousands of them scattered across the world's oceans. Let's start with what you'd notice first. Commercial shipping routes would become hunting grounds. These massive sharks would be attracted to the low-frequency vibrations of ship propellers, mistaking them for the sounds of struggling prey. Cargo ships crossing the Pacific and Atlantic would regularly report massive impacts against their hulls, and smaller vessels, fishing boats, and yachts would simply vanish without a trace. The tourism industry in coastal areas would collapse overnight. Those crystal clear beaches in the Maldives, Hawaii, and the Mediterranean, empty. No one would dare enter water deeper than their waist. Swimming, surfing, diving, all of these activities would become death wishes. But the Megalodon wouldn't just affect humans, the entire ocean food chain would be completely disrupted. Modern great white sharks, currently apex predators in their own right, would become prey. Orcas, those intelligent and powerful hunters we admire today, would have to compete with or flee from these prehistoric giants. Scientists think the Megalodon primarily hunted large marine mammals, whales, seals, dolphins, anything with substantial fat content to fuel its enormous metabolism. In today's oceans, that means the Megalodon would decimate whale populations that have only recently begun recovering from centuries of human hunting. Here's where things get really interesting. The Megalodon would likely establish territories in the most productive ocean zones, areas rich with marine life. The coastal waters off California, South Africa, Australia, and Japan would become no-go zones. These sharks would patrol the continental shelves where the ocean floor drops away into the deep, the perfect ambush points. You could be paddling on your surfboard just 100 meters from shore, and suddenly, from the darkness below, a creature the size of a bus would rocket upward at speeds of up to 18 kilometers per hour. By the time you saw it, it would be too late. During breeding season, things would get even more dangerous. Female megalodons would need to find safe, shallow waters to give birth, just like modern sharks do. This means they'd move closer to shore, into bays and estuaries where their 2-meter-long pups could grow safely away from other predators. Only problem? These are the exact same areas where humans love to build beach resorts and fishing villages. Imagine a 50-ton pregnant megalodon deciding that the harbor in San Diego or Sydney is the perfect nursery. The devastation would be catastrophic, and it's not just the coasts that would suffer. The deep ocean would become an absolute nightmare. Research submarines exploring the depths would encounter fully grown megalodons in the Twilight Zone, that eerie region between 200 and 1,000 meters deep where sunlight barely penetrates. These ancient sharks would be perfectly adapted to hunt in low light, using their incredible sense of smell and electroreception to detect prey from kilometers away. Underwater cables, the ones that carry internet data across ocean floors, megalodons might bite through them, mistaking the electromagnetic signals for living creatures. The economic impact would be staggering. The global fishing industry, worth over $400 billion annually, would collapse. Commercial fishing vessels wouldn't stand a chance against creatures that could bite a steel-hulled trawler in half. Fish stocks, already under pressure from overfishing and climate change, would be further depleted as megalodons consumed tons of fish daily. Coastal cities would need to build massive barriers and underwater detection systems, spending billions on shark-proof infrastructure just to maintain some semblance of normal life. But here's something most people don't consider. The megalodon would actually face serious challenges in today's oceans. Modern seas are significantly different from the warm, prey-rich waters of the Miocene epoch. Ocean temperatures are cooler in many regions, and pollution levels are through the roof. These massive sharks would struggle with plastic pollution, potentially ingesting debris that could damage their digestive systems. Overfishing by humans would mean less food availability, forcing megalodons to range farther and hunt more aggressively, bringing them into even more frequent contact with human activity. Now, during migration seasons, you'd witness something truly spectacular and terrifying. Humpback whales, gray whales, and other large cetaceans make annual journeys between feeding and breeding grounds. These migrations would become gauntlets of death, with megalodons following the whale pods like wolves trailing caribou herds. The ocean would turn red with blood as these prehistoric hunters picked off the old, young, and weak. Whale watching tours? Forget about it. You'd be watching whales being torn apart by creatures from humanity's worst nightmares. Scientists think that in this scenario, humanity would eventually adapt, but at tremendous cost. We'd develop advanced sonar systems to detect megalodons from safe distances. Beaches would have underwater barriers made of reinforced steel, extending hundreds of meters into the ocean. Coastal cities would look like fortresses with walls and nets protecting harbors. International travel by sea would require military escorts, armed vessels protecting passenger ships from shark attacks. The ocean, which covers 71% of our planet, would become largely off-limits to human activity. Things would get worse during storm seasons. Hurricanes and typhoons would drive megalodons closer to shore, seeking calmer waters in coastal areas. After major storms, beach communities would face an influx of these apex predators, turning every trip to the shore into a life-threatening gamble. Emergency services would need specialized teams, essentially shark hunters, to clear areas before people could return to their homes. Eventually, over time, something would have to give. Either humans would hunt megalodons to extinction, repeating the mistakes we've made with so many other species, or we'd retreat from the coasts entirely, ceding the oceans back to the ancient apex predator. The romantic notion of beach vacations, sailing adventures, and underwater exploration would become distant memories. Stories we'd tell our children about a time before the oceans became hunting grounds for the largest predatory shark that ever lived. This alternate reality shows us something profound about the delicate balance of nature. The megalodon's extinction wasn't just a random event, it was the result of massive environmental shifts that reshaped ocean ecosystems. And honestly, maybe it's better this way. As terrifying as great white sharks seem, At least we can share the ocean with them. A world with megalodons would be a world where humanity never truly conquered the seas, where we'd remain forever at the mercy of an ancient predator perfectly designed to remind us that we're not always at the top of the food chain. But that's a story for another Imagine That.